Here's what's coming up. Candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump target LGBTQ+ communities where voters could make the difference in the battleground states that could decide the election. History will be made if Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris wins the U.S. presidency as America's first female commander-in-chief. Her husband, Doug Mhof, would also become the nation's first gentleman. And female banana farmers in northern Malawi find a creative solution to combat the impacts of climate change. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. The race for the White House is extremely close, and the winner of the battle between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican former President Donald Trump may not be known for days after the polls close. In the closing days of this presidential campaign, both candidates are targeting LGBTQ+ communities. These voters could make the difference in the 7 key battleground states that could decide the election. Ginia Dulot reports from Los Angeles.
Candice Kane helped normalize transgender characters on U.S. television with her role on the primetime drama Dirty Sexy Money over 15 years ago. In this election, she says, hard-won LGBTQ+ rights will be at risk if Republican candidate Donald Trump wins the presidency.
We can't go backward. And the Republican Party is trying to bring us back to a time where only a certain amount of people had rights. It's really important and scary, and hopefully, as a nation, we'll do the right thing.
Arthur Liu backs Trump because of his record as president. He says Democrats have made things worse.
I like ultimately the results that he had because the economy was so good. The border was, it had its problems, but it wasn't as bad.
A Pew Research report published in June shows that about half of Trump's supporters surveyed say the legalization of same-sex marriage in the United States have been bad for society. David Keene says Trump is no threat to gay marriage.
Well, his point on gay marriage was sure, why not? Because he understands marriage, apart from being a religious thing, which has to do with the church, is illegal. It's a legal document that creates protections for a couple. So I think he has no issue with that. He's from New York, and he was pretty liberal. He's probably the most liberal Republican we've ever had.
Scientist Ariel Johnson worries that Trump would threaten gay marriage and could endanger her spouse's immigration status. Johnson says her biggest concern about Republicans is restrictions on reproductive rights, including in vitro fertilization, or IVF.
I have endometriosis, and so if I did choose to get pregnant, which my partner and I still haven't decided if we're having kids, but if I did choose to get pregnant, it's likely that I would need IVF, which of course is currently a contentious issue.
The largest organization of LGBTQ+ Republicans rallied for Trump this month in the swing states of Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada. For Harris, the Democratic National Committee this month funded an I Will Vote media campaign with advertisements in 16 LGBTQ+ publications. Polling reported last month by LGBTQ+ advocacy group The Human Rights Campaign found that more than 90% of LGBTQ+ Americans are registered and motivated to vote in this election. That poll gave Harris a nearly 67-point margin over Trump among LGBTQ+ voters. Ginia Dulot, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Most Americans are heading to the polls on Tuesday, November 5th, to elect their next president and legislators at the federal and state levels. Over 55 million people have participated in early voting, either in person or by mail, according to the University of Florida Election Lab Daily Tracker. VOA's Paul Diho is standing by live in the eastern U.S. state of Maryland, where early voting ends today. Hello, Paul. As we mentioned, millions of Americans have already cast their ballots. Explain to our viewers what methods are being used to fulfill this civic duty.
Thanks, Esther. Nearly 244 million people are eligible to vote in this election. Closer to 60 million people have so far cast their vote, either by coming to the places where they can vote physically or drop off their ballot boxes. Right here in the state of Maryland, where I am, about close to 4 million people have already cast their vote. So the stakes could not be higher, especially with a lot of things at stake.
November the 5th, in the context of American elections, if we can vote early, others by mail, what's important here on that key date?
What is important is the fact that the system is designed to allow people who let's say, for example, you cannot make it on election day, you're sick, whatever. This system allows you to vote early. You can do it by so many different ways. You can either vote in person, use mail-in ballots, but they have to arrive at a certain date before the closing date. For example, here in Maryland, today is the final day when people are voting, either physically voting, and so therefore the mail-in ballots have to arrive today or by election day. They have to be in by election day, which is November 5th. But what is more significant here in Maryland is the simple fact that there are so many things on the ballot, but what stood out for me looking at the ballot was the abortion issues. Maryland is one of the 11 states that have abortion rights issues on their ballot, and so people are voting on one of these consequential issues that could fundamentally change the direction of the United States.
Paul, when you speak to voters there in Maryland, what do they say is at stake in this upcoming election?
That's a very good question, Esther. Everything on the ballot is at stake. All the issues that we've been talking about, from immigration to healthcare, to abortion rights, to inflation, politics of the belly, people being able to buy food and put food on the table for their families. Those are all things that are on the ballot, and people, from talking to people who are here, they're expressing those concerns. They're saying that, you know what, at the end of the day, it comes down to politics of the belly. If I can't put food on the table for my children or my family, then that means I'm not being part of this establishment. So a lot of people have shared those sentiments, and it's interesting how this election is going to play out.
Paul, many thanks. I like that. Politics of the belly. Here is Paul Diol, live for us from the eastern U.S. state of Maryland. As the U.S. election nears, Americans abroad, including in Ghana, are registering to vote via absentee ballot. Local efforts are guiding voters through the process, while some share key issues influencing their choices. Senanu Todd reports from Accra.
In Accra, U.S. citizens gathered at an event by Ghana-based nonprofit Daughters of the Middle Passage, with support from their embassy to register for November's election. This is one of many events aimed at assisting and encouraging American expats to vote.
You still have people that don't know where to go to get the ballot. And once they get the ballot, they may need assistance with filling it out. We have older people here who needs assistance with going online to get their ballot. And so we're just trying to solve those problems.
One such problem, according to Dr. Erica Bennett, who has been living in Africa for more than 45 years, is that she has not received her ballot from her county, Fulton County in Georgia.
If I don't get my ballot, I will be flying to Georgia to cast my vote, because I want to make sure that I am voting in this election.
The lifelong Democrat says she is voting for women's rights.
Women have the right to decide on what's going on with their body. I mean, that's very important to me. As a woman, as a mother, you know, it's very important.
But for Republican Dr. Brian Cox, who has lived in Ghana for 21 years, the state of the U.S. economy is central to his votes.
I feel for some of the people who are actually living there as well, because I see certain things that are going on that I know as a citizen I wouldn't like if I was living there.
He's also voting with the U.S. involvement in global politics in mind.
One of the things is world politics as far as war, people, us dealing in different wars.
Independent voter Jimmy Thorne, a printing business owner in Ghana, has been following the elections keenly and says the rhetorics are extreme and concerning. He is voting for democracy this year.
They're trying to downplay, the importance of democracy. But that, to me, that is the single biggest issue of them all. Who knows what we're going to get if we get a strong man? We don't know. At least we know what democracy.
Apiokoseria Mashon Abe, a Ghanaian American born to immigrant parents in the U.S., hopes to move back with her kids, but she is concerned about the housing market.
When you have conversations with friends from way back, and I still haven't been able to buy a house, the housing market is terrible. It's painful, especially when you know someone who got a summa cum laude, who has really worked very hard, but they still haven't been able in 10, 15 years to acquire property because the market is just not making it possible.
She says she is voting for policies that cater to young families like hers. As the debate continues, advocates are pushing for all eligible voters abroad to make their voices heard through absentee ballots. Sana Nutot for VOA News, Accra, Ghana.
If Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris wins the U.S. presidency, her husband, Doug Mhof, would also break barriers as the country's first gentleman. VOA's Dora McCaw has more.
Doug Mhof has spent almost 4 years being his wife's biggest cheerleader.
I love you so much. I'm so proud of how you're stepping up for all of us.
It's a role the former entertainment lawyer expects to continue playing if Kamala Harris is elected president. And Mhof makes history by becoming the first male spouse of a sitting president.
I'm going to approach it the same way. Where can I be most useful to her as her husband, support her, love her, as always, but be there for her. But also, how can I help her as president, help the administration, help the American people being the first, and what issues can I really drive?
Mhof married Harris in 2014 after meeting on a blind date. As his wife's political fortunes rose, Mhof very publicly embraced the role of supportive spouse.
He's kind of made it clear, like, I'm not above these support roles. And I don't want anybody to think that just because I'm a man, I can't play in these surrogate and support roles.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mhof gave up his law firm job and started teaching at Georgetown University when Harris became vice president. He says his wife pushed him to make the role of second gentleman his own.
Being the first guy doing this, let's talk about gender issues. So I talked a lot about gender equity, pay equity, family leave, childcare.
In the United States, political spouses at the highest level have always been women. But Mhof has shown that he is adaptable, says Anita McBride of American University.
Talks about their family life, says up front, I'm here to, my most important job is here to support the vice president.
As second gentleman, Mhof, who is Jewish, has also led an anti-Semitism initiative for the Biden administration. First ladies traditionally focus on social activities, like overseeing state dinners and approving the White House holiday decorations.
You're looking at the food and the flowers and the china. Will that be something that he wants to do? Maybe yes, maybe not.
As president of the Senate Spouses Organization, Mhof has already shown a willingness to embrace tradition.
There's some lunches, there's an event at the vice president's residence, so I just made sure that I participated in those traditional events, and as first gentleman, there's certain traditions that I fully expect that I will faithfully uphold.
First ladies generally donate their inaugural fashions to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington. Whether a gentleman's suit will soon join the collection remains to be seen. Dora McQuarrie, VOA News, Washington.
People worldwide are closely following the U.S. presidential race, and joining me is Priscilla Mudley, a South African national visiting the U.S. She is excited to be here in Washington as the election gets closer on November 5th. Priscilla, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
First of all, tell us why you're so excited to be here during this election.
Traveling from New York and all the other states and landing in Washington, D.C., and I was so ecstatic to come and be a witness to the speech of Kamala Harris as well.
So what exactly drove you to come here? Why did you decide, okay, I'm going to the embassy, I need a visa, and I need to be in the U.S.?
It was just visiting a state, I suppose, and just being part of the elections as well.
So which places have you been able to go? Were you able to attend any of the presidential rallies in any of the states here?
No.
So
it's only Washington.
You just watched online or
watched
TV?
Online. So while walking on the street, we took out a picture with Kamala Harris, and there was a young lady. Said there was a speech that night. So we said we want to be there, and it's an awesome moment to be.
What resonated with you as you heard her speaking?
Well, she's a woman of power, and she has what it takes. And being a lady, and she can do it.
What do you say she has what it did? Give me a little something about this. So what will you be taking back to South Africa? Watching, the elections here, you see there's early voting. There are all kinds of ways to get your ballot and to do your civic duty here. What will you be taking back to South Africa about this year's election here?
The unforgettable moment that I was there, this live speech of Kamala Harris, and sharing with the people there, with the different like how the voting here is quite different compared to South Africa, and having a woman president running, it's really motivating.
So what did you hear from the speech that was a little different from what you're used to in South Africa? Because actually I haven't seen a woman president running for president in South Africa yet. Hopefully you will get one at some point. So what resonated with you in her speech?
Well, the fact is that she's for the women, for the abortion rights, and it really is very, very good. I mean, she is fighting for women, which is excellent.
Priscilla, thank you for coming to the studio and sharing your excitement about this election. And we'll chat a little more.
I wish both parties all the best.
All right, thank you. Priscilla Mudley is a South African national. As the U.S. gears up for its presidential election, reporters from VOA's Africa Division's 10 language services spoke to people about the expectations after a new president is elected in part 4 of a 5-part series titled Messages to the Next U.S. President. Let's hear from people across the continent about the expectations for U.S.-Africa relations, regional issues, and global challenges.
Donald Trump, what I love about him is, as experienced former president, he's thinking of reintegrating, rebuilding the economy of the United States, building the international relations, and also trying to have that pro-life thing, protecting the kids before they are born, which is something I also support. And I believe if they will choose him, a lot of things will be in good place in the U.S. And for Kamala Harris as well, I love the healthcare plan for every citizen in the United States, and also building the job security for every citizen in the United States. I think this is very important, and if she wins as well, they're going to have a very good president. So for me, whoever comes in, I think it will be a very good way forward to building the economy of the United States and also fostering collaboration with Tanzania.
Nous souhaitons une coopération gagnant-gagnant parce que
we want win-win cooperation with the United States because Africa has suffered greatly and continues to suffer as our resources are exploited and we earn practically nothing. We want a relationship based on mutual understanding that takes African values into consideration.
The first priority for Africa should be solving the issue of migrants who go abroad in search of a better life and often end up drowning at sea. The second is addressing the ongoing conflicts around the world, such as in Ukraine. The third is reducing the number of coups in foreign countries where governments are being established as they see fit.
Americans have been very supportive of Africans and other nations' progress, particularly towards building democracy. Africa becomes more hopeful whenever the Democrat Party forms a government. Republicans worry mostly about America and its well-being first, rather than other regions or countries of the world.
We expect the President of America, who is going to assume office, to make sure that the wars that have been happening in the world should stop. We expect the war that is in Israel to stop. We expect a war that is in Ukraine to stop. So we just need someone who will be a unifier, who doesn't take sides.
People across Africa talking about the expectations for U.S.-Africa relations from the next U.S. president. Still to come, female banana farmers in northern Malawi find a creative solution to combat the impacts of climate change. We'll be right back.
Beauty pageants have evolved over time. From being competitions solely focused on physical appearance, today they emphasize a combination of intelligence, talent, community service, and advocacy. Despite these changes, beauty pageants still face criticism. Some argue they continue to promote outdated beauty standards or reinforce stereotypes. This week on Our Voices, we'll explore how contestants use pageants as platforms to highlight social issues and discuss the challenges the beauty pageant contestant of color face. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, 2 medical groups in Mozambique say at least 10 people were fatally shot by police and 63 others sustained gunshot wounds when authorities cracked down on unrest following the October 9th presidential election. The country is bracing for more protests against a vote criticized as fraudulent by opposition parties and questioned by international observers. The UN Refugee Agency says Uganda, home to more than 1.7 million refugees, is the largest refugee hosting country in Africa. And despite being renowned for welcoming those fleeing neighboring violence, Ugandan officials and humanitarians say dwindling international support, coupled with high numbers of refugees, is putting a lot of pressure on host communities. And Somalia's political leaders have agreed on a framework for the country's first national one-person, one-vote elections, according to a government statement. The decision followed lengthy talks led by Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud that saw the withdrawal of Jubaland President Ahmed Mohamed Islam from the National Consultative Council meeting. Female banana farmers in northern Malawi have found a creative solution to combat the impacts of climate change, which have recently devastated their crops. They are making wine from overripe bananas that go bad because of extreme conditions. Lamek Masina explains from Karonga district in northern Malawi.
Regina Nkandawire, a small-scale banana farmer in Karonga district in northern Malawi, has long discarded bananas that were overripe because of extreme temperatures. Malawi is suffering some of the worst impacts of climate change, which has resulted in natural disasters for the past 3 years. Here in Karonga, for example, hot weather conditions, sometimes reaching as high as 43 degrees Celsius, have caused severe heat waves affecting banana farmers like in Kandawire.
I faced a lot of problems. I was not able to find money to buy food and also to pay school fees for my children. That's when I decided to join a group of banana farmers.
But with the support from Comsip Cooperative Union, the women and a few men in Twitule Cooperative are transforming their overripe bananas into wine to offset their losses.
I am making a lot of profits now because I am able to pay school fees for my children. I have also bought some livestock that I sell whenever I need money to meet the needs of my children at school.
The production process involves fermenting overripe bananas with sugar, yeast, water, and lemons. The final product contains 13% alcohol and is sold for about $3 a bottle. However, the challenge is that the farmers are yet to be certified to sell their wine outside the country.
So it is a very big problem for them to take their wine to abroad. So as we are just now, we are in the time that we are waiting for the Malawi Bureau of Standards to give them the certificate and to do something so that their product should be known everywhere in this world.
Government authorities say the initiative complements efforts tailored to economically empower vulnerable groups.
We take them on board to have some food for work programs. So when they do this, we also encourage them to form the groups. So we train them in the mindset change. We have a rule book which encourages them to start thinking outside the box.
Currently, the group produces about 45 bottles per day, but they say plans are in the offing to purchase machines that would increase production to meet the increasing demand. Lamek Masina, VOA News, Karonga District, Malawi.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.